Joining us now from the organization Concerned Veterans from America is Karen Vaughn. She's Senior Military Families Advisor for CVA. She's also a Gold Star mother and founder of 4R Son. Karen, Merry Christmas. Great to have you with us.
Thank you, John, and Merry Christmas to you.
I know you've been really fighting hard to get the word out on Lieutenant Clint Lorance. He's 29. He was convicted of murder in the 2012 incident in which he ordered his platoon to shoot the men approaching a checkpoint on a motorcycle when they refused to stop. Can you share with our audience what the story is with Lieutenant Lorance and how we can possibly make a difference here?
You know, I thank you so much for taking the time to tell your audience about this story. Clint is the most all-American man you would ever meet, and I like to call him Clint, and I'll tell you why. Because I feel like people just see soldiers so differently than just the human aspect of a soldier, that Clint is someone's son, someone's brother, someone's cousin. Clint is an all-American young man, son of a welder. He grew up in humble means, but he had the heart of, I can't even explain the heart this young man has. He's the kind of boy who buys his mother just trinkets of gratitude and sends them to her throughout his life. You know, working by the time I think he was 12 years old, he had a job so he could save money for his own college, decided to join the military after 9/11, and this man has fought. He fought for 10 years, serving with a spotless record, accolades at every single evaluation, and with a split-second decision, this hero's life was destroyed by the very military he gave himself to. And what happened, like you said, on the morning of July 2nd, 2012, 3 military-age males were riding together on a single motorcycle, speeding along a dirt road towards Clint's platoon. And one of Clint's men, Private First Class Skelton, who had been in the war zone many months, so he was very keen on what threat assessments were, what was dangerous and what wasn't. He was on top of a berm and could see this scene unfolding. He reported to Clint, who was below the berm, that he perceived hostile intent from these riders during that morning engagement. He testified to that under oath. So Clint simply relied on PFC Skelton's threat assessment and gave the order to engage the riders. And 2 of them were killed and 1 escaped. And just to add to that, and Clint, you know, just to be clear, Clint was convicted of murder for these 2 men being shot. Clint was, not the people who shot the men. They were actually offered immunity to testify against Clint. It is the most screwed up, twisted thing you will ever hear. And to add insult to injury, moments later, approximately 500 meters from that first engagement, the lead element of Clint's first platoon was also shot. 2 additional military-age males who were also scouting Clint's platoon, crouching in the berms and acting suspiciously. Those 2 were killed. Nobody was court-martialed for those 2's death, and communication intercepts subsequently revealed that those men had been on radios saying that there are Americans on the roof and we were going to do something to them. You know, it's just astounding. These rules of engagement, my husband and I, like you said, we're Gold Star parents. Unfortunately, our son Aaron was killed in 2011. And we believe strongly that Aaron, our son, who was a member of SEAL Team 6, he died because of rules of engagement in this war zone of Afghanistan. The rules of engagement which have become so skewed and so anti-American that they're heartbreaking when people hear the truth of what they are. We believe these rules took our son's life. And we know that these rules put an innocent man in prison. And as Clint's mother, Anna, says so eloquently, and it just breaks my heart every time I say this, she says, my son would have never seen the inside of a prison had he not chosen to serve America in the United States military. This is a black mark on our history, and we must do something to free Clint Lorance. He does not deserve this.
Well, Karen Vaughn, let me start by saying how sorry we are for the loss of your son. And I know that's tough during the holidays. Those of us that haven't experienced that can't possibly even begin to empathize. As you look at the Clint Lorance situation, you got to ask yourself, what was the objective here? I mean, what was the government's objective? And now what is their objective in not reopening this in order to look at the new evidence?
Well, those are very interesting questions. And, of course, all I can do is speculate because I've been entrenched in trying to understand, what is happening in Afghanistan for the past 2.5 years at least, probably longer than that. But, what you just said there, and something I didn't point out a minute ago, is that several days ago, Clint's counsel learned that the Army has in its possession evidence linking the men who were killed to terror networks in Afghanistan, IED, explosive device residue on their clothing, and all of that was withheld from Clint's counsel and from anybody in that court-martial, which is astounding that this is happening. And Clint, a servant of the United States of America, was denied due process. Evidence that would have completely exonerated him was withheld. And yes, you have to say, what is going on here?
Karen Vaughn, Senior Military Families Advisor for Concerned Veterans for America. Karen, we have you back now. We were trying to figure out what the objective is of the government, one, in pursuing this charge, and now, two, in fighting the new evidence. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. You would think that our government would want to embrace any new evidence so that he could be legitimately freed.
And I'm not sure how much you guys heard before I was cut off. I'm sorry about that. But, yes, my opinion is we have been in a process of appeasement with the Afghan government for quite some time. Really, actually, since 2009, we have seen extraordinary changes in the rules of engagement for our men, and all of those changes have been for one purpose: to appease the Afghans. If I told you stories that I have heard about this type of appeasement, stories that personally affected my son, you would literally want to just lose your breakfast over it. And this is completely unacceptable. We send our sons and daughters to fight, on behalf of the United States. We give them to this government, and then this government is critically abusing them in every way imaginable. And all I know is it is appeasement to the Afghan government, and Clint was made an example out of. Clint was handpicked. I just feel like it was a lottery almost, and he was just handpicked, and he's the one who took the brunt of it. And, we can do something about this, and it's not too late to help Clint. And here's my thing. I say all the time when I'm talking about Clint, Marcus Luttrell, everybody is familiar with the story Lone Survivor. Mm-hmm. Those men decided not to kill the sheep herders that came upon them. They decided to play safety's sake and not be court-martialed when they came back to the United States, or not be plastered all over CNN, as murderers and such. And instead, 19 Americans died because of that decision. Clint made a decision to choose the life of his men, no questions asked. He chose the life of his men over the life of the enemy, and now he sits in prison. And, here's how I feel about it. If our soldiers are sent to a war zone, they ought to be able to defend themselves, and our government should have their back when they make the choice to do so. And it is so frustrating to me that they have to sit out there and wonder, question themselves, because questions lead to hesitation, and hesitation leads to flag-draped coffins and families like mine who will spend another Christmas without our child at our home, and it's not right.
Yeah, it's not right, and it almost seems from what you're saying, Karen, that Clint has become basically a political football in this situation we have with the Afghan government, which is not pleasant anyway. And so that it's almost like you're throwing a body up on the table in order to appease a government that is totally corrupt at its core, that we know for a fact sells drugs all over the place. I can say that on the air. And so
you're right, John.
It's a government that wouldn't sign the agreement with us, and meantime we're spilling our blood, and so this is an appeasement, and it's basically, let's just take the life of a young man, throw the body up on the table in exchange for some goodwill for the bigger picture of whatever it is that we're trying to do. I don't really know what the bigger picture is there. As you know, I've been a fan for some time. Not a fan. I've been a proponent of us just getting out. And it's for these reasons. I mean, it's like General MacArthur said during the Korean War to Harry Truman before he got fired. He said, "I can't bomb half a bridge." I mean, either we're in this war
right.
or we're not, because it's not fair to my troops.
Right. You're absolutely right. We are on the same page 100%, and we, here's the thing. We have a government that's gone awry. There are things all around us that I would actually go so far as to say our government has become lawless. I mean, what we have seen over the last few days with the New York City policemen, with the demoralization of our military, now the demoralization of our police department, the demoralization and outing of CIA agents, we have witnessed something that is so out of proportion to anything probably you or I, John, have ever experienced in our life. In Afghanistan, this is a war that has gone on for 13 years with no end game, with absolutely no moral objective, it doesn't seem anymore. And I was 1,000% behind going into Afghanistan. My son was driven to go eliminate the people who perpetrated the attacks on 9/11, just like Clint Lorance was. And, the least we owe these men and women who go and fight for us is we owe them a victory. We owe them a plan that our goal is victory, right? But we're not even giving them that. I mean, I believe this is the core reason we're seeing such astronomical numbers of suicide among active duty military members. We are in a desperate time in American history, especially with this ongoing war in Afghanistan, and now back in Iraq, where this government has basically spit on the graves of all the men and women who gave their lives in Iraq, and just kind of flipped a big finger at them and said, so what? We're going to turn it back over. It is a tremendously demoralizing situation we're in, but Clint, we can rescue Clint. We can be a voice, and we can actively seek rescuing Clint. We don't have to let this man be another casualty of this war.
How? How do we
How do that? Is right now a clemency package is sitting on the desk of Brigadier General Richard Clark. I am begging people to email General Clark respectfully, asking him to grant Clint's clemency, to end this nightmare. And what I'd love to do is email you General Clark's email address. Maybe you could put it on your website, or somehow tweet it or something and share it with your listeners so they can, again, respectfully. I know that General Clark is looking at this package right now, but I want the American people to stand behind Clint Lorance, and here's why. I want other warfighters who are still over there on our behalf right now to know that if they come into question over a choice they made to defend their own lives over the lives of their enemies, I want them to know the American public has their back. And this is one way we can prove we do, by flooding General Clark with emails and letters, respectfully asking him to grant Clint's clemency, telling him that Americans will not sit idly by and watch a brave, noble young man be crucified for political appeasement.
Okay, Karen, what's his email?
His email is richard.d.clarke, that's CLARKE, 6.mil@mail.mil, MIL.